Um, no one in the waiting room. We're ready to go. Okay. Well, let's call to order this meeting of the Montara Water and Sanitary District Board of Directors. It is July 11th, 2024 at 7:33 p.m. I'll do a roll call vote. Director Young.
I'm not voting, but I'm here.
This is a roll call.
I know you said roll call vote.
Oh.
It's okay.
Good catch. Director Slofsky.
I am here.
Director Slater-Carter.
Present.
And Director Boyd is here, and Director Decker is away this evening. Let's see.
Sorry. Jeez.
Well, I'll take the opportunity with the sneeze for the president's statement, just to say I want to commend Sam and especially Superintendent Tim at SAM for the regular sampling and posting of the results of what's in the wastewater in terms of things like COVID and RSV. It's a very good information source. You can use it to see how things are relative to where they are normally. Surprisingly, in the middle of all this wonderful summer weather, things are actually up kind of high right now, kind of back to about the high in the winter time. So it's good to have the information. All right, so
I'm going to see the Rolling Stones on Saturday, so I got my most recent COVID booster at Kaiser this past week, so I don't want to risk it.
Rolling Stones, they're still touring. Huh?
Yeah, damn it.
Yeah, okay.
And Greg was at the MCC calling in on Wednesday night because he has it. I know.
So, well, we're moving into oral comments, so.
Thank you. I will say that my son and daughter who are in Barcelona, or my son and daughter-in-law, both got COVID.
It's
all over the world. But more important, what more to my point is, I just read an article by Peter Dreckmeyer, who worked on the Open Space District campaign here, and has been working on the Follow Me River campaign for decades. And he just put out an article saying that San Francisco has decided it needs to spend this is a repeat, by the way, of about 20 years ago, more billions of dollars on repairing its system, and sewer and water sewer for the city and water for the city and everyone else is going to be tripling in the next 10 to 15 years. And the other thing that I read was, and it's not due to this weather, but it's due to some other stuff, but this weather is not helping. We're looking at major increases in electrical costs, which of course then gets reflected in your sewer and water bills as well. We have to take that into account when we're doing our rate calculations. So prices are going up, and it's important to remember that. And understand it's not the board doing it, it's the economics of the area and the state that are doing it to us.
all right. I see Michelle Dragony.
Hi. I really liked what Tim was doing, but I saw Aaron Gilbert outside of he's the lead operator at SAM, and he's outside the UPS store, so we had an instant conversation, and he said that the wastewater scan people, they didn't want to do the testing anymore, so they're not going to do any more testing. And I think Catherine pushed back on the lack of testing for drugs that was being done at one point by somebody. And she suggested that the public health of San Mateo County pay for the drug testing, and maybe you guys could go back and get them to do the COVID and the other germs testing, because I agree. I thought it was totally useful. And in fact, the Mercury News last week had an article which said that COVID is 99% of what it was in 2020. So there you are.
But it's not as virulent.
I thought this strain was as virulent.
No, it is more virulent in terms of its ability to spread with greater.
Contagion.
That's the virulence. The
Symptoms.
the outcomes are different, and the death rate is far down from where it was at one time. But there's still a concerning percentage of people getting long COVID, and the studies on this are showing that reservoirs of the virus can live on after infection for as much as 2 years. So there's a lot of good research being done into how to detect and treat this, but this may be something having to do with what's going on with long COVID, and the outcomes for long COVID have been very difficult for people who have very little energy for a very long period of time. It's a very tough situation for the people who find themselves in that. So this isn't like flu. It has symptoms that are reminiscent of flu, but some of the consequences can be very, very concerning.
It messes deeply with
Well,
water.
So thank you, Michelle, for okay.
It was not Sam that didn't want to do the drug testing. It was Half Moon Bay who would no longer pay to have it done. Both Granada and Montara were willing to continue it on because it gives folks important data about things that we maybe don't want, that we need data on to protect our families and society and such.
So was this a SAM agenda item?
It was as I recall, it was a consent item,
Recently?
years ago. You can ask, give Keisha a
I'll
call.
reach out to Keisha. All right, well, thank you. Let's now go to the consent agenda, speaking of which. And we don't always do this, but let me just, for the audience, give a sense of what's on the consent agenda. We've got the minutes for the regular scheduled board meetings of June 6th and the 20th. We've got the financial statements for May. We've got the warrants, or in terms of ordinary people use checks, for July 1st. The Sewer Authority Midco side flow report showing how much flow each day into the plant from each of the 3 member agencies. The monthly review of the current investment portfolio. The connection permit applications received, the monthly water production report, the rain report, the monthly solar energy report, the monthly public agency retirement service report for April, and the review and possible action concerning government claim for personal injuries. So that's what's on the consent agenda. Yes.
I wanted to make a slight correction to agenda item 4 for the June 6th. And the vote was not unanimous because I abstained. So it shouldn't be what it said. It should be, I guess, 3-0.
So
One abstention.
So staff, do you catch that? That Director Young on the June 6th agenda item 4 abstained on the vote. So if we could make that correction, could I have a motion to approve the agenda with that one correction? Or pardon me, the consent agenda, all 11 items.
So moved.
So okay, so Catherine and Bill on the consent agenda, we're all in the room, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I have one comment.
By 4-0, I have to say this part, by 4-0, the consent agenda is approved. Yes, Catherine.
The flow report is blank
Mhm.
because of the holiday.
Okay.
So for those who are interested, we're still waiting on those numbers because the SAM crew takes holidays like the rest of them.
Good. All right, let's move on to, there is no old business, new business. Item 1, review and possible action concerning adoption of the appropriations limit for fiscal year 2024-2025. Comments?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. This is a standard item that we have to do every single year. At least since 1980, that was when the GAN initiative was adopted by the voters in California. And what it does is it really puts limits on the amount of proceeds of taxes that local agencies can appropriate and spend each year. So we do the math each year. Last year, the limit was around $2.8 million. It's calculated according to a specific formula that is given in the law here, and it factors in the county's overall change in population and also the per capita personal income. This year, the appropriations limit was calculated to be $2.97 million, so roughly $100,000 more than last year. And then we also always see, well, how much is the district actually appropriating? And that worksheet shows that the district is around $1.4 million below its GAN limit. So we're required to adopt a resolution on appropriations limits for the upcoming fiscal year. So here, or we're actually just started this fiscal year. So here we are. Asking the board to adopt the resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District determining the 24-25 appropriations limit. Thank you.
Catherine?
For those who may be watching this later, what does it mean appropriation limit? Does that mean the amount we can charge our ratepayers
And spend.
or spending?
Yeah, spending.
Okay. Thank you, because I think a lot of people might not be clear on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the math is actually attached. And so that really shows our, income side and actually also the expense side. So of the calculation here. So if
Yeah.
anyone is interested, again, the formula and the math is actually attached to our staff report.
Yeah, I believe the reason for the GAN appropriation limit had to do with abuses in certain government agencies many years ago. Every year when we've looked at ours, we've come nowhere close to the limit, but we have to, by law, calculate it and adopt a resolution for it. With that, yes.
Oh, now I forgot. Well, over here, Clemens, where it says reconciliation calculation, San Mateo County population change minus 0.50 and unincorporated minus 0.65. It's not really our district. It's based on the whole county and the unincorporated part of the county. Oh, you're muted.
It's the unincorporated portion of San Mateo County that we're considering here. You're correct.
So they just kind of spitball it for our district based on the whole unincorporated county area.
Well, this is not district-based. The formula is asking us to use this specific number for the population change.
I see,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, no, fair questions. All right, can I have a motion for the resolution? Okay, so it's Catherine and Bill, thank you. It's a resolution. Let's have a roll call. Let's start here with you, Director Softy.
Yes.
Director Slater-Carter.
Yes.
Yes.
Director Young.
Mhm.
And Director Boyd votes aye, so by 4-0, the resolution is adopted. Right, thank you. Now we have item 2, review and possible action concerning cancellation of next regular scheduled board meetings, and note that's plural.
I was happy to read.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So we're talking about the July 18 and the August 1st meeting, and the suggestion is to cancel those. We can have a special meeting at any given time with 24-hour notice. So if their need for a meeting arises, we can hold one. But we're not able to prepare the July 18 and August 1st meeting, so we're suggesting to cancel those.
Somewhere.
I don't think we really need a motion for that. We anticipate lack of quorum, right? So let's just direct staff. Yeah, let's go ahead and let people know that those have been canceled. Yeah. All right. We are through all the business. Let's go to reports. Sewer Authority, Coast Side. Catherine, do you want to take that? I was there as well, so I can pitch in.
Why don't you And it was a short meeting. It all went well,
Mhm.
and I will let you finish because
I think the biggest piece of business was for the pipeline work that has been stalled for quite a while. The board approved unanimously to send out the bid or send out the request for bids to three qualified bidders. And what will come back from that will be their bids, but it's going to be in a design build arrangement. And rather than go into all the details here, the agenda had a really good staff report on this. The idea is with design build, you kind of do some of designing and building as you go. So there's always some kind of open-ended how it might go as you go, because you didn't plan it to the usual extent when you do a full design first. Even full designs aren't full designs. There's a hefty portion, you get enough done, you know what you're doing, and then you move forward. But in this case, one of the really interesting parts is working into phases, and at the end of one of the phases, they come back, whoever the winning bidder is comes back with an amount that they guarantee they won't bill beyond. So some interesting risk calculations in this.
The dollar amount or a?
Dollar amount.
Okay.
So a couple of key considerations out of this. One is we're getting started later on this than we had intended to do with respect to the settlement with environmental
Rights.
rights.
Foundation? ERF?
Is it rights or
I don't know.
resources? ERF.
Or ecological or environmental?
Yeah,
It's-
anyway,
They're an
ERF.
environmental organization that took notice that Sam had some bad spills.
Oh, yeah,
No, I'm explaining to the audience, brought action, and the settlement included, we're gonna have to do some work, and this is a big chunk of that work. So it's a very interesting staff report. Very happy that we sent this, that we approved sending this out. So we're a little bit behind schedule, but according to plan, we should be done by midsummer of 2026 with 2.5 miles of pipeline replacement. And that has been needing to happen for a long time, so we're that much closer. You had your hand and then,
2026, did you say?
yes,
Like a year and a half from now.
2.5 miles of pipeline.
Okay, so the pipeline we're talking about is going from where to where right
It's
now?
here in the northern section.
Okay,
It's Sam's pipeline here in the northern
I
section.
you didn't say, so I wasn't sure. Thanks.
Yeah, and let's see,
I guess it's a blessing.
it is a blessing. Summer of 2026 sounds like a long time, but there's a lot of design work, a lot of budgeting to do, a lot of environmental work to do that can't be done until enough design work is done. And the environmental work is on a really pretty aggressive schedule. But given that we're doing replacement of existing and with some of the planning about how to put things basically in the same trench as currently existing, I think we can keep the environmental down to something pretty easy to approve.
The good things I hear are first, that they're voting to actually go ahead on something which does something. And second, that they're admitting it's a replacement and not an upgrade or some other weird chicanery. But I've heard so much about over the years about bait and switch methods of seeming to approve something and then not actually signing the check. So I just want, it sounds like you think this is in good faith. And I will take your word, I want to hear that.
I'm going to say it's a step, it's a necessary step, and this step is done. There are many more steps. And I'm going to take the positive view on this. We're getting some things done. And to put kind of a bow on it, the Princeton pump station work is done.
that's what I was gonna mention.
The team is very happy that that is
Wow.
done. That has been needed. That has been a dangerous
Wow,
situation
cool.
for far too long,
Decades.
and it's done. So
Wow.
let's celebrate this,
Yes,
Catherine, and then we'll go to Greg.
Yeah, let's celebrate Princeton Pump Station. It has been a life-threatening hazard to our crew. And to the wetlands that are adjacent to it for 40 years. Oh, and to the harbor.
Mhm.
We can thank ERF. And because they sued Sam and it's in federal court. If we don't do this pipeline project and the pump station project, we might have to spend that much money defending ourselves in federal court.
Yeah, so this is going to be many millions of dollars. We don't have the quotes in yet, but I believe we heard a number in the neighborhood of 14 million.
Well, 2.5 for Montara.
No, right, but overall, the project 14 probably.
Or more.
The same project, had we done it, well, Catherine asked a question while we we're there about the Princeton Pump Station and how much that cost, and that was 2 million?
It was 2,800,000 roughly
For us.
No,
for the
no, I
entire
think,
project.
oh, the number I remember was 2.6.
Yeah,
And then you asked the follow-up question, how much was it back when we wanted to do it in the first place?
Don't ask.
well, they didn't have that, but when Beverly Marshall was general manager 7-8 years ago, it was 700,000.
So this is very simple math. For infrastructure things, if you fix it today, it costs less than if you fix it tomorrow, and it costs way less if you fix it 10 years from now. I mean, if you fix it now
If you fix it
versus,
now,
it's the old, for people of a certain generation, you can pay me now or you can pay me later, and this is one of those later cases.
Why do you pay on Tuesday for?
Yeah.
Things don't get cheaper over time.
Some things do.
Well, not pest control work and certainly not repair work on these kind of things.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say to Bill is, don't get too celebratory yet, because all they did is send out bids. and We can always.
One thing that Director Ruddock asked, and it was a good thing, was how early can they give us a thumbnail of some of the cost estimates? So they can have those numbers in time in advance for doing the annual budget planning, and that was a solid request.
It's a hopeful.
And so Keisha is gonna take that back and try to emphasize the importance to the bidder. We need some kind of thumbnail as soon as they can dial in a reasonable estimate.
As long as they don't move the cheese, that's fine.
Sounds like good news.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, correct?
Great.
Looking at you, Greg.
I don't have questions for this. I only have an update. I just wanted you to know that I have an update for the MCC.
Okay, all right. Well, let's then go on to CSDA or LAFCO.
there's a CSDA.
I said I do have an update.
Oh, you
Yes.
do have it.
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry, I heard it.
I also have COVID, so I'm sorry if my brain is fogged.
Well. Sorry you have COVID, but we're
Yeah.
glad you're here. So the
Semi.
floor is yours, Greg.
My report?
Yes.
yes, please.
Ready.
So there are several things going on that, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a minute. GCSD presented after the MCC and others had appealed their project on the Burnham Strip. And we had a fascinating hearing last night where members of the public came out of the woodwork, including Leonard Warren, who showed up by phone to speak about the project. I could go into detail, but let me just say there's a fair amount of controversy. And I spoke to one experienced, let's call it community member that you all know that's been involved in governance here for a long time. And he can't see this thing even getting to the Coastal Commission by the end of the year. It brings together a nexus of problems, including the erosion at Surfers Beach, the multi-asset roadway rehabilitation plan by the California Highway or Caltrans, and the loss of parking there, and what the Harbor District has done. It's well-intentioned, but it's just running into so many constraints, not the least of which is neighbors upset about the preschool and the loss of daycare, which isn't in GCSD's charter. So there's that saying, no good deed goes unpunished. They're trying to do a good deed and they're just being raked over the coals at every turn, but by people with valid reasons. And the consultant who presented last night also wasn't accused directly of lying, but it was funny to see this little old lady from El Granada stand up with in her hand copies of the surveys that they'd sent out years before, and completely refute what the consultant had said. People have been asking for more or the same parking, not less or the same parking. They didn't ask about the community center. It wasn't on the survey when they published it. It was apparently envisioned as a park. It was just a fascinating show. One of the best meetings I've ever attended. But I did raise the issue at the end with Chuck Duffy of the need for more wet weather storage in the Burnham Strip, which Half Moon Bay refused to consider back in, I'm going to say it was late 2020, when I presented a spreadsheet and other people spoke. They had the engineering firm's recommendation about, do you add 200 or do you add 400,000 gallons in wet weather storage? And within 2 months of them completing that project, maybe less, we had a storm on October 21st that came within 6 inches of overflowing the capacity of the wet weather storage at that site. So I raised the point that if we're going to be delayed, could we please go back and consider adding the other 200,000 gallons that Half Moon Bay refused to allow? It's going to be more expensive, but I think we might need it. So that's something you guys are professionals on. You might weigh in on that, but I'm just telling you, it's an incredible nexus of agencies, Half Moon Bay, DPW, the Harbor District, there's all kinds of people trying to work on this Gordian knot. The Montara Mountain also has been a problem. You're aware, since SFPUC chopped the top off the mountain, and I think Clemens and others got involved with Steve Ritchie. Nothing's been done there. By the way, SFPUC is in serious financial trouble. The Tuolumne River Trust and I both published analyses. They're cash flow negative. They have, by my calculations, $6.7 billion reserve deficit, and they want $17 to $20 billion in alternative water supply. So they're in serious trouble. But they've been doing stuff. American Tower Corporation's been a lousy tenant, strewing garbage, and the road work that's been done on those roads was just a disaster. Yada yada yada. And I had COVID, so I couldn't go. But Carl May, actually, for the first time in 25 years, went over to the county, and Sean Handel spoke. Chris Rogers zoomed in, and they convinced the Planning Commission to partition the application that was on the table and exclude the road maintenance until, and they pointed to the MCC's letter, a road management plan is devised that actually works, with a hopeful idea that we won't use that road at all, but we'll find an alternative use using SFPUC's road or other places. So there's going to be a follow-on group with some continuity. It might take more than years, longer than I'm going to be on the MCC. But I think MWSD's participation in that group, if it's interested, would be welcomed. So I'll just say that a lot more is going on. It just, right now, it's stalled. And then there's CRISP, the Coastal Resilient Infrastructure Strategic Plan, which I contributed the R to. There are now weekly meetings being held. A survey's been sent out, and I'll bet while I was out, Gus attended the first meeting. I'll bet MWSD probably came. They've produced a survey, and they're asking for it to be filled out. But I'm going to say the 26th, no, the 19th of July. But they will accept some late submittals. At the second and third CRISP meetings, there was only one attendee, me. And so I sat there with 3 county employees who are under orders to sit there and take questions from agencies and people who are wondering about what to do and how to do it. And I'm going to be filling out a bunch of their questionnaires. I discussed today all kinds of stormwater and potential sewer and other issues. But he's really unclear whether anybody else is going to submit it, including Half Moon Bay. So I just raised the possibility that MWSD, I'm going to produce a list. I'll circulate it through the council and the MCC to Ryan Reynolds, who's the guy who's the lead Department of Emergency Management guy on this, to you guys, and ask which ones you would be interested in submitting, because better the experts should submit this. But you may remember the local hazard mitigation plan. where I had to drag people into trying to file, couldn't get GCSD to file, and it's only because you filed that something got done and we got FEMA money. I'm afraid we're headed toward the same thing with Chris. So I'm looking for contributions and trying to touch base with every agency to make sure that there is a Chris submittal for everything that makes sense. And I'll do it myself if I have to. And then finally, I don't know if you're aware, there's this Bay Area Housing Finance Authority, which is a subsidiary of the MTC, with a bond for $20 billion. It's really a series of 7 bonds extending out to 2078. The $20 billion will cost $48.3 billion because $28.3 billion was spent on interest. And this is going to be a point of some controversy. Depending on the value of your house, and there's a bunch of variations in what the ad valorem tax rate will be, homeowners could be spending over the course of this bond, assuming it tax stops, something in the order of $50,000 each. But expensive houses, like a $3.5 million house, will go up to $111,000 at the normal rate, and it'll be more expensive at the high end. So it's a massive tax. It may be, I'm having confirmation on this, the largest housing bond submitted in the history of the United States. At least it is for a regional agency, a non-elected governing board. And they're modeling it after New York State. And the point I'm bringing up here is that tax is going to suck tax money and the ability of the San Mateo County and anybody else who wants to raise a bond out of their pocket, because I guarantee you people are going to be so upset about this, they're going to vote no on everything that comes their way. If they just did a tax, they could save $28.3 billion in interest, but no, they're doing a bond and passing the interest on. All right, that's it for me.
All right, thank you, Greg. Let's go to Clemens first.
Clemens has his hand up, yeah.
Greg, I was surprised to hear that you were talking about other CRISP meetings that have happened. And because we were, of course, invited to the first one, participated, and we're also participating in the survey. I actually submitted the survey twice, haven't gotten a response, no confirmation that it was submitted. So I'm curious, were those meetings water and sewer specific, or was this something where was there a reason why we were not there or not invited?
Oh, we were not.
I can't speak.
What you're saying?
I can't speak to that.
If there was follow-up meetings, we were not invited. No.
That's what I wanted.
There's one every week. And Gus Madamal gave me a copy of the invite that he got, and I'm delegated to follow up on Chris because he's not going to attend every meeting. And as I said, there's nothing going on. They're just sitting there listening to see if people have any questions. I could tell you more about what he said if you want to know.
I'm just curious to see the invite, if you can forward that, because we haven't received an invite to follow-up meetings.
All right.
Yes, I know. All right, let's go to Sid.
Greg, I have a question for you. On CRISP, I'm really not sure what all's involved, but is any of the money that they have allocated for it gonna go towards emergency evacuation here on the coast? Because
That was my first question and the first 15 minutes of our discussion today. And the two-part answer is I don't think there's any money allocated to CRISP other than the money, which was, I believe, initially $200,000 to sort of run a study, and they're going to produce a geo map of where the projects are.
yeah.
And the answer to the question is maybe. It will depend upon the suite of applications they get, the decision criteria they use, and how the prioritization shakes out. So I brought up, for instance, tall eucalyptus trees falling on Highway 1, erosion at Surfers Beach cutting the highway, blah, 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 blah.
So my second question is on that Transportation Authority bond, what's for housing? What do they have to do with housing? I mean, I don't understand the Transportation Authority getting involved in a housing bond.
You mean you're surprised that a housing
Not
subsidiary of
surprised,
the
I mean,
Transportation the housing subsidiary of the Transportation Commission, which has never built a housing project in its life, is given the
Yeah.
largest bond proceeds in the history of the United States as its pilot project?
they're trying to, but why? What's their point? Did they think they're gonna put everything down near transit corridors or something?
That's it. And also keep in mind that where you put the transit defines who makes the money off the property.
Yeah, okay. I'm voting no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
If you'd like some data about the population in San Mateo County, look at our, I know you've had some questions, but if you stroll down on our appropriations limit. Clemens has put together an excellent graph that shows in the last year, every single city on the peninsula of San Mateo County has lost population.
It's expensive to live there.
And it will affect, this will not only, this, when you use the word homeowners in that bond, remember that that also includes tenants, because the landlords are the homeowners and they pass those costs on. So it should be everybody who's living in a house in San Mateo County will be paying regardless of their income. Just some facts to use when discussing this. This is obscene. I've been reading about it. I guess it's time to get more involved, but anyway, thank you.
Let's go to CSTA or LAFCO.
Hasn't been there's a LAFCO meeting next week or the week after, and a CSDA meeting next week.
Okay, thank you. And then attorney's report. Christine?
No report.
All right. And then any director's reports?
Fire board, they, at the last meeting, opted to lease from the, lease their El Granado Fire Station, the old one, to the sheriff's department. And, for a long-term lease, I asked Ray, what do they want to do with it? And he said they're gonna park cars there, but I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll use it as a temporary emergency shelter, like when we had the power outage, they brought their emergency mobile unit over for a warming station and stuff. I don't know, but that's one thing. And then they also just announced that they're not gonna buy the 50-acre parcel of nursery where the Bay City Nurseries was. They're not moving forward on that.
Right, there was too much pollution of the groundwater, of the grounds, and all of the buildings had to be taken down and removed, and any more that involves all kinds of inspections for hazardous toxic waste.
And there was no sewer specifically, as I recall, but
Right.
they wouldn't say why, so.
Michelle?
Yes, the old 41 station will be an emergency place, Sid, so you can still stay warm when your power is off. And it's just going to be storage, and it's going to be, you know, for cars and just for stuff. Also, in terms of the emergency evacuation, the Board of Supervisors at the 625 consent agenda, they awarded 1.1 almost $1.2 million for Ladris Technologies to do analysis on response plans and evacuation. And the last thing that I wanted to pick up, hang on just a second, was the Resource Conservation District received $600,000 for a grant to improve Montara 2nd Street stormwater runoff. Greg, I know that you want that. And also the other thing that you were working on, Greg, was Half Moon planning Highway 1 to get the eucalyptus fire fuel reduction. They're going to be doing that for Highway 1 and 92. So it's a $600,000 grant over 3 years for planning.
92, not Highway 1 near Lindemar?
No, Highway 1 and Highway 92 for the fire reduction, including the eucalyptus. So I suspect that area that goes from Montara to Pacifica is one of the big hot ones.
Do you know, do you expect to have something on Coastside Buzz soon that might say more about that?
The one on the Resource Conservation District, the consent agenda is up right now. The one on Ladris I was going to do next week because I had a lot of stuff this week.
Cool. I'll check it out. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Oh, and Catherine, what was your source for the reason why they was it somebody that, because I have not been able to find a source. Nobody will talk to me and nobody's talking to anybody else.
About what?
The land that
The
they,
58.
About for Bay City, and Cherise McHugh said that their water and fertilizer system was it's all internalized. There's no loose ends or anything like that. So she didn't think it was any kind of pollution. What I got from Steve Monowitz, because I asked Lisa Ketchum to ask, because like I said, nobody's going to say is saying anything. And what Monowitz basically said is it's a private real estate deal. And it's a little bit like GCSD. When they bought Picasso, it was in closed session, as was all of this. And then once it comes out of closed session or it's just denied, like Bay City was, that they can't talk about it because it's basically private property and a private conversation. So to the best of my knowledge, nobody knows what the real reason for the reason why the county decided not to do that. Now, having said that, I know Mayor Jimenez is definitely still interested, so I suspect City of Half Moon Bay will look into this further. But I was just curious about the source.
My source is anonymous, but speaks often with members of the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
and on the supposition about the city of Half Moon Bay, one of the motivating reasons that Director Ruddock mentioned when asking, could we get some, the earliest possible budget impact, was because the city of Half Moon Bay has a structural deficit.
Yep.
That
Which
was
Sid has been saying.
very plainly stated. Okay, so let's
That point alone sounds like they're serious.
I have two directors of
okay.
comments. One is, and this is about the Harbor District, I read in next door that the new bathrooms are open at Surfers Beach.
Mhm.
And there's actually a picture in next door of fences being gone. The other is, which is hot news that I got today, and we'll be talking about it a little bit more at the Harbor District meeting, is that we got the permit for the beach, for the sand replenishment at Surfers Beach.
Oh, wow.
And it's not just the last permit in a long string, it is the entire permit.
What about the funding now?
We have the permit, now we can go for the funding because there's serious problems in the world of bureaucrats and their responsibility to their jobs.
So, well, that's a
That's
tremendous
great.
milestone. So
Yeah.
congratulations on that.
So, yeah, just think, the permit, Princeton Pump Station, and the sand pipeline in Montara.
Wow, it's crossing our fingers.
I have a quick question about the Harbor District. At the GCSD meeting or MCC meeting regarding GCSD, they kept referring to the Harbor District for supplying parking for if the Highway 1 parking goes away. Is there any
I can
possibility?
say that has never been a discussion on our agenda.
Right.
Nor has it been anything in closed session.
Okay.
And Harbor District is like GCSD, it's an enterprise district. And as an individual member on the board, I would say unless we can find people who are willing to build, maintain, take on the liability and reimburse us for the use of the land, I would recommend against it. But Caltrans does have about 60 feet between the eastern edge of the highway and the telephone poles
On the east side or the
on the
west?
east side.
Yeah, the telephone poles tend to define the boundary
Right
of
away.
the easement of the right of way. That's right. Okay, let's go to, Clemens, do you have anything to add to your general manager's report?
Nothing to add to the written report. Thank you.
All right, so this brings us to the end of our open session. In closed session, we're going to recess, give our good PCT crew a chance to pack up. But in closed session, we'll have the usual suspects, Half Moon Bay and their infamous lawsuit. And we'll also have a discussion concerning conference with legal counsel, pending litigation with Ecological Rights Foundation. It's right here and right in the agenda versus the Sewer Authority Midcoast side. So those are the two. If we take any action, we'll report that out after we come out of closed session. With that, I'd like to thank, as always, everyone who tuned in, participated, or watches this later. We really appreciate the participation, the questions, the comments. If you've been holding back on something that you wish we knew, tell us. Come to a meeting or reach out to staff or to individual board members. The feedback is almost always helpful, even if you might be concerned about sharing some frustration, but you know, we're actually quite interested in what you might have to say. So with that, I'm getting a look.
I know, I'm not going to add to it. I move that we adjourn and
Well,
you don't have to
second.
move because you get to say it.
Yeah, I'm just, okay, so well, we're not gonna adjourn, we're gonna go into recess.
Oh.
With this, we are in recess. Thank you all.
That's like a roll call.
Night.
Those words.
I think what occurred